Our very special guest is James Dean Cole, 33rd degree, the illustrious and most powerful sovereign Grand Commander of the Mother Council of the World of the Ancient and Accepted Scottish Rite from Washington, D.C. I am deeply honored because you accepted to grant this interview. Many thanks, Brother Jean. Many thanks.
Thank you. It's my pleasure and honor to be interviewed by you, and I very much look forward to our conversation.
Thank you again. My dear illustrious Brother Jim, please let me have your impression regarding the latest edition, the 21st of the World Conference of the Sovereign Councils that took place in Bucharest in May this year. The floor is yours.
Well, I was very pleased. Honestly, I had not visited the beautiful country of Romania before, and I was pleasantly surprised at the beauty of the country and the architecture. The meeting was conducted very well. We I think, had wonderful opportunities to meet among the Supreme Councils. I think there were 59 Supreme Councils that were in membership at the conference. The fraternalism that went on, not just in the meetings, but particularly away from the meetings, generally at these conferences, the real value of the conference is the opportunity to meet face to face with one another, because we do not have those opportunities, particularly for those from North America and South America and Africa to be able to meet and mingle with and have conversations with the leaders from the European countries. Within the European countries, because they are much closer geographically, they are able to communicate much more frequently in person. But once you bring everyone together, it is, it's just a wonderful feeling to be able to talk to people from around the world about Freemasonry and understand what we have in common. Understand we have similar issues that we tend to struggle with. But it was a very good conference in that sense. I was very pleased. To me, the most important thing that came out of the conference was that the conference, by an overwhelming vote, offered membership in the conference to the two Prince Hall Supreme Councils from the United States. And of course, that is a recognition of the long-standing issues that have been overcome within the United States, but those were really issues that were impressed upon the fraternity in the United States because of American society over really a couple of hundred years. And to see Freemasonry overcome those societal issues was just very rewarding to me. I've worked on that particular issue for most of my Masonic career, the recognition and acceptance of Prince Hall Freemasonry. So that made it a very special time for me. I think we planned future meetings. We're planning to meet in Peru in 5 years, and then on the African continent in the 5 years after that. So we planned the future sites. We did agree that the accreditation commission, which I currently chair, would continue in place until the next conference, and that will allow us to work on fraternal recognition issues within the World Conference. It will allow us to work on that as we go forward, rather than waiting until just a few months before the next conference. We will be able to thoughtfully evaluate those issues as we go forward. So that was also good. We had good food. We had good entertainment. We had good weather. And we were, as I said, we were able, because I think of a well-planned agenda, to enjoy the very beautiful country, the architecture, the history that is involved with Romania was just very enjoyable for me to participate in and to enjoy.
Thank you so much. I have often heard, and I also dare to consider, the Scottish Rite is the University of Freemasonry. The Scottish Rite is more offering than other appendant bodies. What is your opinion?
I very much believe in that statement, that the Scottish Rite is the University of Freemasonry. We try to, for example, we publish more books within Scottish Rite than any of, or really more books probably than all of the other appendant bodies combined. We have, in the Southern jurisdiction, we have a correspondence course called Master Craftsman Program. We have the Scottish Rite Research Society, which does research in Masonic history and into the esoteric topics. We emphasize education throughout our organization. We also, in the Southern jurisdiction, we support financially the continuing education of young people. So as they are attempting to attend college, we provide financial scholarships for them. We also fund Rite Care programs, which assist children with their language disorders in an effort to allow them to more fully and effectively engage in education as they go forward. As their communication improves, they're able to become better educated individually. So we've got a lot of reasons for that. Our degree structure, if you think about the Scottish Rite degrees, it provides additional insights to the basic Blue Lodge, or the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry. And therefore, we're in the education business even within our ritual, because we're providing further information about the original Masonic story, if you would.
In various countries of the world, there are problems between Grand Lodges and Supreme Councils generated by the hugeness of the ego of their leaders. Please be so kind and give a lesson on this matter to those who consider themselves like an absolute guru. You were also Grand Master of Grand Lodge of Virginia in
Yes.
2001, so you can speak from both point of views.
Yes, I was Grand Master 25 years ago almost, and I do have an appreciation of the challenges that Grand Masters face. I also have, because of my work during those last 25 years within Scottish Rite, I have an appreciation of the challenges that Scottish Rite and other appendant bodies have in dealing with Grand Lodges and Grand Masters. Unfortunately, we do sometimes have we all have egos. We all have a certain amount of our own pride. But what I try to remember is, to me, the most important working tool or symbol of a Master Mason is the level. And I encourage, and in fact, I just met with 40 Grand Masters at the Imperial Shrine session, and I spent 2 days in conversation with them, facilitating discussions among those Grand Masters. So there were 40 Grand Masters in the room. I was a past Grand Master. I had two colleagues that were working with me to run this meeting. They were past Grand Masters. So there were 43 Grand Masters and past Grand Masters in the room. So how could we possibly discuss things? Well, as I suggested to them at the beginning, we have to remember that the level teaches us that we should meet every Master Mason on the level. It doesn't say you don't have to do that if you hold a particular office. It says you have to do that. So the challenge when I was Grand Master to me was to make sure that while I did not surrender the responsibility or authority of the office, I communicated with every single member on the level. And if that member happened to be a worshipful master of a lodge, or if he happened to be a Grand Lodge officer, or if he happened to be the head of an appendant body, such as Scottish Rite, I communicated with him in the same manner. I feel strongly that regardless of your title, there are certain ways that you should not communicate with another Master Mason. You should not, as we say in American language, you should not talk down to anyone. You should meet them on the level. You should communicate on the level. That doesn't mean that you allow that you surrender your ability to make a decision, or that you surrender your ability to properly execute your responsibilities as a Grand Master, or in my case, as a Grand Commander. When I approach a member as a Grand Commander, for instance, I try not to refer to my title a lot. You know, I try not to have in my conversation a reference that says, well, I'm Grand Commander, and because I'm Grand Commander, I don't do that. I try to say, what is the best thing that we need to do here? What's best for the situation? Why are you doing that? Or why would you not do this? Instead of saying, I'm Grand Commander and I tell you to do this. Because I do not feel that I know everything. And therefore, when I was in early grade school, probably my favorite teacher told me, the day that you stop learning is the day that you start dying. So if you're going to live another day, you've got to learn something today. And for me, one of the reasons I meet people on the level, even before Freemasonry, is because I know that I can learn something from every single person I meet, because I don't know everything. So in any situation, if I have to use my title, then, to say, we're going to do this because I'm the Grand Commander and I said so. If I have to use my title, that means that I was unable to properly evaluate and explain the situation.
Wow.
So if I have to use my title to get something done, I've probably failed in my mind. And so in order to best overcome this around the world, I always encourage leaders to meet other leaders and their members on the level that doesn't give up anything, doesn't take away any titles. To me, that's the most Masonic action you can take in life, is to meet everyone on a level manner, because no one likes to be put down and talked down to. Everyone likes to be appreciated. And when people are appreciated, you see the full picture of them. When they are put down, you see a resistance that comes up, and you're not going to get the full story. You will never find out the extent of the problem if you try to find it with a stick in your hand to beat on someone. The only way you will find all of the information is to meet someone on the level, and then they will open up. No one opens up to someone that they feel is so far above them. And therefore, you should not act above other people.
This is was a real lesson of leadership. Thank you very much. I hope some leaders will learn from this part of interview. Thank you again. Brother Jim, what is the most difficult problem facing Freemasonry today?
There are two difficult problems. One we just talked about. We have a problem in which, at all levels of our fraternity, and this could be in the lodge or in the consistory of Scottish Rite, that we don't meet one another on the level. That's one. The second problem is we are poorly equipped to communicate to non-Masons who we are and what we do. We, for many reasons, but we are not as capable of communicating to a non-Mason about what we do and who we are. We're not as capable as we should be. I think part of that, if you think back to our early ritual, a lot of our ritual is about protecting our secrets.
Mm-hmm.
Yet we don't explain to our members where the secret stops and, information that we can share begins. So we also do not train our members on what to say, how to answer questions about the fraternity. So because of that, we become, because we don't know how to communicate about who we are and what we do, we then build on that aura, that perception by non-Masons that we're a secret society and that we're doing bad stuff. And of course, that nothing could be further from the truth, but we're not communicating. So our ability to communicate with non-Masons, I think, is one of the two big problems that we face.
Do you think that nowadays world needs Freemasonry like in the past? Freemasonry is somehow eroded. Does Freemasonry become more a charity organization? What is the situation in the United States of America?
Well, I think the world, but especially American society, needs Freemasons living in a Masonic manner more than ever before. I think the principles of Freemasonry certainly built this country. Freemasons were leaders in the establishment of this country. And I think if you look around the world, you will see that many of the countries were started or were built up, or their civilizations were greatly enhanced by members of the Masonic fraternity.
Mhm.
So I think, yes, clearly we need that. Again, this whole approach of meeting one another on the level, if you simply look at social media and the news from television and other places, and you see people talking down to other people or criticizing, or instead of trying to learn from one another and to work together, they're calling one another names, and they're saying hurtful things to other people, or they're giving one version of the truth,
Mhm.
or half the truth, and thinking that's the whole truth. Well, it's not. I mean, you have truth and you have a lie. And people sometimes tease me that I'm very black and white in that. But as I've told my children as they were growing up, if you're not telling me the truth, then you're lying. And you better hope I don't catch you lying to me. So I think that the principles of Freemasonry would, if they were more acted upon by people in society, both Masons and non-Masons, if they were acting like Masons, whether they're members of Masons or not. But in other words, if they're meeting one another on the level, if they were treating one another fairly, if they weren't talking about people behind their back, if someone, when they made a mistake, they would go to them and put their arm around them and whisper good counsel in their ear. All these things that Masons promise to do. If Masons and non-Masons would begin to do that, clearly the society in every country would be better.
I kindly ask you to share with our audience your outstanding international Masonic experience. There are differences between Eastern and Western European Freemasonry, between South and North America. What kind of Freemasonry do you think is closer to what Freemasonry should be? Please describe the similarities, tell us about the differences in the way of various local approaching the Brotherhood.
Well, first of all, I'm not an expert on the ritual, even in certain parts of my country, let alone in many countries around the world. But what I will tell you is this. In the United States and in some parts of other parts of North America and South America, there is a tendency to have Freemasonry emphasized for a much broader demographic audience.
Mhm.
Within Europe, especially, there tends to be a more narrowed scope as to who Freemasonry is directed toward within society.
Mhm.
Part of that has to do with the approach to ritual in particularly Europe is much more methodical, and it takes longer to move through the degrees. In the United States, there are what we refer to as reunions. With a class reunion, you can walk into that building as a Master Mason, and you can leave the next afternoon as a 32nd degree Scottish Rite Mason. Now, in many countries, well, first of all, in many countries, they do not go all the way to the 32nd degree, hardly ever, very rarely. In the United States, Scottish Rite, a full membership is regarded as being at the 32nd degree. And that generally occurs in a matter of weeks or days. In other parts of the world, For example, in England and Wales, you would typically, the 18th degree would be considered to be a full membership in Scottish Rite, and anything above that is more of an honorific degree or title, and that varies around the world. For instance, it varies around the world how many active members that a Supreme Council has. Some have several dozen. England and Wales has 9. The Southern jurisdiction, my Supreme Council, has 33. The Northern jurisdiction, which we border, has 66. So the numbers even within that differ. Now, as far as which one of these is better, here's what I say, even within my own jurisdiction. We have to recognize that every Masonic body, really anywhere in the world, is embedded in a particular culture. Every lodge within the state of Virginia, where I was Grand Master, has its own culture. They're used to doing certain things at their meetings. They're used to having a certain meal at a certain time of year, because that's part of who they are. So as long as anywhere in the world, as long as good men are getting together and they are building a bond based upon our generally shared principles, then that is the best Freemasonry for them. And it's not the best from one country to another. It's very difficult to transport that because the cultures are different. The men grew up in a different society. The men face different problems. And therefore, as they come together, it's that as long as there is a fraternal cement that is binding them together, then Freemasonry is working there. So whether the ritual has 32 degrees or 18 degrees, or whether you get 1 degree a year, that doesn't matter. It's whether the cement of brotherly love and affection is working to bind those members together. Then you have a successful Masonic entity in wherever that place is.
Splendid. The Grand Lodges in English-speaking countries are losing membership. What kind of politics do you recommend for retaining membership?
This is one of the things that I discussed with those 40 Grand Masters last week, and that was, in fact, that's just the way I asked the question. We have to create a value within our organization. Our members have to know that we value them, but their membership to them individually has to have a value to them. We all do things that we value as human beings. If we do not see value in something, we will tend to avoid it. If you thought I would not be able to answer questions or speak clearly, or you would say, well, there's no value in me having an interview with him. Clearly, you make decisions based upon perceived value. So what we have to do is we have to build value within our members. We have to make them feel that what they have with us is valuable. And our emphasis, in my mind, needs to be on quality and not worry about quantity, which is the numbers of how many members we have. Because in my mind, if we build quality in life, quantity always follows quality. Quantity never creates quality or value. Just because there's 10 people doing something doesn't mean that the 11th person will come along, because they might think, well, there's 10 is too many and I won't get it. Yeah, if 10 people, if 10 people were gathered around a pie and
Yeah.
eat,
Yes.
the 11th person is going to get a smaller piece of pie.
I agree.
Okay. But if 10 people were gathered around a pie and they look like they're enjoying it, and they say, this is the most delicious pie I've ever eaten, then the 11th person may very well say, well, if it's that delicious, even a very tiny piece of it would be worth having. So numbers do not drive quality, but perceived quality drives numbers. And so we have to make it valuable for the member. And the challenge there is that we have members with a lot of different perceptions, a lot of different needs, a lot of different preferences, and therefore we have to determine what they want and then be able to provide it to them.
Indeed. The public perception of Freemasonry has changed over time. What has led to these variations? A good public perception results in an increase in number of members.
I think that first of all, I think that what you just said varies around the world.
Mm-hmm.
In some places, particularly in the countries where Freemasonry is relatively new compared to being 200 or 300 years around, but to the society is relatively new. I think it's viewed a little more positively because it has not become, as we say, old news. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think what I said earlier about the ability of our members to communicate, I think our members were more willing to communicate who they were and their pride in Freemasonry 100 years ago than today. And the reason, part of the reason for that is there are a lot of things that are competing for our attention and for our time. People can take the cell phone and spend a lot of, they can spend hours with that. As I was driving to work today, a car in the other lane was stopped, and there was an opening several car lengths in front of that, and he was impeding traffic. And I looked over, and he had his notebook computer propped against his steering wheel and was typing when everyone was driving past him on the road. And so his attention was diverted to that instrument. Whatever he was typing on there was of greater value to him than driving down the road. But by doing that, that sent a message to me that he was not interested in driving down the road. So if we get distracted in our messaging, then the audience, those non-Masons, can get an inaccurate or inappropriate or wrong message from us. So we have to be very focused in this. We have to be willing to communicate more directly than we have in the past. And again, I think a lot of that goes back to the average member really does not know what he can or should talk to non-Masons about.
How do you see the future of Freemasonry?
I see in first of all, in terms of numbers, everybody always asks that question. I think I think we will in America, we will probably be less in number, but more focused and probably more effective in the next few years
Wow.
because as the numbers are coming down slightly. First of all, we're not losing as many members each year as we were. The percentage of loss is becoming very small. And I think what that means is over time that will level off and the numbers will actually increase in probably within a decade or so. I think if we can begin, and I think we are beginning to more effectively communicate with non-Masons and with our own members. And as we communicate more effectively, then it will allow us to rebuild our reputation. And as we continue to hopefully live Masonically, then we become more likely to be examples in the community and therefore have a more positive view from society of Freemasonry. I think that in the last year or two in America, I think we're starting to see a slightly more positive view of the fraternity than we have had in the past. My wife pointed out to me that just yesterday she saw on a newscast that in the opening section of this national news, a picture of a square and compass in Philadelphia. And it referenced, it was a picture of a Masonic building, and it started there and panned over to Independence Hall. And it said on the 4th of July weekend in the city of brotherly love. Well, as it said brotherly love, it panned across a square and compass. 5 years ago, that would have been edited from the film.
Wow.
Now it is a little bit more, just a little bit more acceptable out there. And so I think that we're starting to turn the corner in America. I think that in other countries that I have visited, I think Freemasons are regarded more highly than they are in America. And again, that sort of varies by the history of the country. And it goes back to what I was saying earlier about the local needs for Freemasonry are what really defines that culture that I was talking about in Freemasonry.
Finally, my dear brother Jim, please let us know your curriculum vitae, both profane and Masonic, please.
Professionally, I was trained as what in America is called a certified public accountant. So I have my financial background. I worked in an international accounting firm for 3 years. They wanted to promote me to a national office, and I did not want to move. I was engaged at the time and decided that I wanted instead to move from an accounting or financial career, and I moved into work in the administration of a large public university by the name of Virginia Tech. It was actually where I obtained my undergraduate college degree. While there, I obtained a master's degree in education. I began a business in addition to my job. I began a business of consulting. I consulted with several hundred different clients who were in what in America we call the nonprofit or charities. I worked with those as well as working at the university. I did not teach classes at the university. I was an administrator that worked in the business part of the university, and part of my job was to establish partnerships, even overseas, with universities, with businesses. Helped start a campus in Switzerland for a European Studies Center for that university in Virginia, so that students would be able to travel and live in Switzerland during the summer, and they would travel around Europe and learn things about the culture and society. We even had engineering students that went over there and studied how bridges were built in Germany and things like that. So I enjoyed that. At near the end of about 18 years in that position, I became Grand Master in Virginia. And following my year as Grand Master in Virginia, the Masonic retirement community, which in America, it is a healthcare facility where people who are retired from work can go and live. And I ran that for 18 years. And during that time, I also became an instructor, an author. I wrote educational courses for CPAs, and I taught ethics classes. In fact, they said that I taught 43,000 students over the course of 14 years. So I taught a lot of classes, and then I resigned from that job to accept this job, which is a paid position at the Supreme Council. So professionally, that's what I did. Masonically, in 1983, just before I was married, I joined the Masonic Lodge, was raised to the degree of Master Mason on July 19th, 1983. Then 2 years later, I was appointed to a Grand Lodge committee and an office, and in 1985. Then in 1991, I became the chairman of our Grand Lodge Finance Committee, and that was the same year that I joined Scottish Rite. When I joined Scottish Rite, ironically, I was the first person to receive the revised fourth degree. They adjusted the ritual, and I was the first person to receive that. And the Supreme Council came and witnessed that. And I didn't even know who the Supreme Council was, but they knew me apparently. And then I became Grand Master in 2001. The next year, I was appointed as a deputy of the Supreme Council after I went out of office as Grand Master. And then I became an active member a few months later of our Supreme Council. I am a member of the International Shrine Organization. I'm a member of several York Rite bodies. I have received honors and awards from a lot of them, which certainly I don't think I deserve, but somebody thought I deserved them. I'm an honorary member of 14 different symbolic lodges that have awarded me honorary membership. I'm an honorary member of several Supreme Councils, which are similar to the honorary memberships in subordinate lodges. And I am currently, in terms of seniority, in addition to being the Grand Commander, I am the senior serving active member of the Southern jurisdiction. I became an active member in 2003. The next most senior member joined in 2005. So I'm also the senior guy in addition to being the Grand Commander. I have two children. I've been married for 42 years. My wife is extremely supportive of Freemasonry. I have two children and 5 grandchildren. And what I like to do when I'm not doing Masonic activities is to read books and play golf.
Oh,
So that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
splendid. Thank you so much for this fantastic interview. As I said previously, it's a real lesson for being leader.